We are live. We are live. We are live. I'm Dr. Frita, and welcome to another Medical Monday, where I give you all of the hot health headlines in the news. Today, we've got a jam-packed show, and of course, as always, we'll be giving you evidence-based information. Let's start off talking about Deion Sanders. He's definitely been in the headlines because he is now a survivor of bladder cancer. Well, I've been getting a lot of questions about bladder cancer and about this new bladder he has. And so we'll play my favorite game, myth versus fact, and we'll use it for us to learn more about bladder cancer and the treatments. And then we'll move into our weekly dose where I give you a fresh take on medicine you simply can't get anywhere else. We'll start off talking about Justin Timberlake. Now, he's been in the headlines quite a bit for some good things, for some bad things, but now he has a health issue. He shares that he has been living with Lyme disease. Lyme disease. What in the world is it? Why has it caused him to have to cancel some performances? Well, it's pretty serious and perhaps more debilitating than you think. And so we'll talk about Lyme disease and Justin Timberlake. And then we'll talk about John Legend because he and his wife, Chrissy Teigen, have shared that their son has a diagnosis of diabetes. And so we'll talk about diabetes, specifically in young people. We'll talk about diabetes mellitus type 1, the signs, the symptoms, and what it means. And we'll also go over the differentiation between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And then raise your hands if you eat sushi. Do y'all eat sushi, sashimi? Do y'all like a little bit of raw fish, perhaps? Well, there's a clip that's gone viral because a man was preparing his fish, and honey, there was a worm, a parasite wiggling in his fish. Now, does this mean you need to stop eating sushi, stop eating raw fish? Perhaps, but y'all know that's not going to happen. And so we'll talk about prevention. We'll talk about the risk factors for actually having parasites. We'll bust a couple of myths as well. And then we'll talk about key ways to prevent parasitic infections from your fish. Lastly, we'll talk about Khloé Kardashian. Khloé Kardashian. Now, she knows she stays in the headlines, but she's back in there with some health issues. She had a type of skin cancer that she actually kept private for a while. And so we'll talk about that skin cancer that she has. We'll talk about ways to diagnose it, how you can find it out in yourself if you have it, how to prevent it, and certainly some treatment options. And so, of course, we're live. I'm Dr. Frita. You ask me questions right here live and on stage. I'm going to ask you questions. Most importantly, we're going to learn because I'm giving you evidence-based medicine on this Medical Monday. Hello, hello. We're live. Come on in. Hey, before you do anything, please give us a like. That's right. Click that like button and make sure you share. It lets YouTube know that we're here. We're here. Get used to it. And we're giving evidence-based information. So we're about to go ahead and get started with these hot health topics. You know, I'm not doing it alone. To my office manager, Miss Shador, please come on to the front of the stage. How you doing, Shador?
Hey, you doing good, Dr. Frita? How are you today?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. It's the first day of school around here, and my youngest two, my twins, started their first day of high school this morning, Shador. Now, I'm very proud of myself. And listen, everybody on this live needs to buy me something pretty because I actually did not cry today. I didn't, but I'm not going to lie. I felt very emotional watching them get out of the car, you know, and for those of you who've been following me for a while, you know that my youngest two were preemies. They weighed only 1 pound, 11 ounces, 1 pound, 13 ounces when they were born. You know, it was touch and go when they were in the NICU. So now I'm just so thankful to God to watch them thrive, to watch how they've grown, to watch how they love each other. They're kind people. Look, I didn't cry this morning, but I'm about to talk myself into some tears about on hush. But anyway, I just pray that everyone, all the kids going back to school have, you know, safe trips back to school, that socially and academically they thrive, that there's no bullying, no violence. Lord knows, I just pray that this firearm violence goes down. I'm just praying for a good year for everybody. That's where I am this morning. Where are you, Shador?
Well, my mom's birthday today, so we'll celebrate it later on.
Happy birthday, Miss Jeanette. That's funny.
Just chill today. Pretty just chill.
Chill is good. Chill is good. Well, let me tell you what is not in a chilling state of mind, and that's these headlines, Shador, because we have a whole lot of medicine and some learning to do. So as we go ahead and get started, y'all, again, please go ahead and give us a like Give us a share, give us a follow. These are free ways to support the channel. And Shador, who was the first one in the chat today?
The first in the chat today was Planet Life.
Hey, Planet Life, welcome back. Welcome back. Listen, I want to hear from you. Let's have some interaction, especially in this myth versus fact game. Welcome. All right. So let's talk about Deion Sanders, shall we?
Yes.
Now, y'all know Deion Sanders, primetime football legend, NFL player, coach, stays in the news, personality plus. When he went to Colorado, I believe that's when he ended up with some medicine in the headlines where he had blood clots and ended up having to have some toes amputated. Well, now we learned this past week or so that Deion Sanders has been diagnosed with bladder cancer. And he shared that he chose to have his entire bladder removed and to get a new bladder in its stead. And he shared that he's been having some incontinence. He said, I depend on depends. And so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what it means to have a new bladder. Does it mean that you actually have to have a urine bag outside of your body? We'll talk about some myth versus fact statements, okay, that have been going around. And then we'll talk more about bladder cancer and how, some of the statistics behind it, some of the risk factors, and how to recognize it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our first myth versus fact statement, please.
All righty. Blood in your urine always means you have bladder cancer.
Blood in your urine always means you have bladder cancer. Put an M1 if that's a myth, put an F1 if that's a fact. All right, myth versus fact statement number 2.
Once the bladder is removed due to cancer, a person will always need an external urine bag for life.
So is that what we're dealing with prime time? Once that bladder is removed, you always need to have that exfoliate bag where your urine is literally in a bag outside of your body. M2 if that's a myth, F2 if that's a fact. All right, myth versus fact statement number 3.
Your job can increase your risk of developing bladder cancer.
What's your job got to do with it? Can your job increase your risk for having bladder cancer? M3 if that's a myth, F3 if that's a fact. All right, pencils down. Let's get into some of these answers. All right, Shador, do we have any participants?
Absolutely, Dr. Frita. We're always participating over here.
All right. See, that's why I love this chat. And hello to everybody in IG land. Hello to Facebook. And of course, to my replay crew. I know I want y'all to participate. All right. What say ye for the first answer?
All right. Blood in your urine always means you have bladder cancer.
All right. Who said what, Shador?
We have Anton.
Hi, Anton. Welcome back.
Anton says a myth.
A myth. Okay, so blood in the urine you think can mean something else, Anton. Okay.
Purple Onion agrees. Hello.
Hi, Purple Onion.
A myth as well.
Okay.
I Can See Clearly also says myth.
All right. I can see clearly now. The rain is gone.
Sheree, hello.
Hey, Sheree.
Myth as well.
Myth. You think it's something else? Okay.
Over on IG, we have
IG.
Coconut Love says it is a myth.
Oh, you think it's a myth also? Welcome. Let's see. IG, what do we have over there in IG? I did a couple of clips. Oh, yeah. I did a few posts over the weekend over on IG. Check them out. I even did a flashback Friday of one of my favorite dancing videos. Ooh, I used to be dancing on TikTok and all the things. So check that out over there on IG. And y'all, after you finish with this live, go check it out. It's actually, I think, my favorite dance video, always with a health connection, of course. And don't y'all play with me. I could dance if y'all haven't seen me on YouTube. Now, leave me alone.
And Dana also says it's a myth, Dr. Frita. So a bad
Dana
on this one.
Everybody said it was a myth. All right. Y'all know I like to trick y'all and get y'all all tripped up, but you are correct. It's a myth. Just because you have blood in the urine, that doesn't necessarily mean you have bladder cancer. But of course, blood in the urine or hematuria is one of the telltale signs of bladder cancer. But some other things that can cause blood in the urine include infections, okay, urinary tract infections or kidney infections. Also, stones. If you have a kidney stone that's scraping down the walls of your kidney, ureter, bladder system, that can cause blood in the urine. Chronic inflammation can cause it as well. Also, if you have some kidney diseases like glomerulonephritis, so things like lupus nephritis or FSG, focal segmental glomerulosclerosis, things of that nature. Some kidney diseases can cause it without necessarily being cancer. Kidney cancer can do it as well. But yes, either way, though, if you see blood in your urine, you definitely need to go and get it checked out by your physician sooner, not later, because it could be something serious. All right, let's see if I get y'all with this next one. Let's do myth versus fact statement number 2.
All right. Once the bladder is removed due to cancer, a person will always need an external urine bag for life.
And we did hear, Deion Sanders was sharing how he had some bags, some urine bags. But does this mean that you'll need a urine bag for life? What'd they say, Shador? What you say, chat?
Right, we got mixed bag on this one, Dr. Frita.
Mixed bag, no pun intended.
We got Planet Life. It says a fact.
A fact that you will always need an external urine bag after your whole bladder is removed. All right.
Mister,
where is your sister?
It is a myth.
A myth. So you don't necessarily think that you have to have a bag for the rest of your life. All right, Mister.
I can see clearly, says a myth as well.
All right. We'll see if you're clear on this answer. I can see clearly.
Brenda.
Hey, Brenda.
Brenda says it's a fact.
A fact that you're going to have a bag for life. Don't even worry about it. Forget it, prime time. You're going to have a bag on the side of your nice suits and belts. Okay.
And IG, there are little disagreements as well. Coconut Love says a myth.
Okay.
And Madawada says it is a fact.
Ooh, we got a battle on IG. Y'all welcome. I love when y'all watch me from IG. All right. One says myth, one says fact. Okay. I love a mixed bag, not just because I like to trick people, tricky, but because that lets me know that there's a place for learning. So this is good. Okay. All right. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. So once you have your total bladder removed, that means that you will have to have an outside urine bag for life. This is actually a myth. It's a myth because technology has advanced. So listen, let's talk about this bladder, this neo bladder that Deion Sanders has. If you could pull up that picture of the kidney bladder anatomy, please. So, in your normal anatomy, you have your 2 kidneys. You see them up there looking like kidney beans, each one about 9 to 11 centimeters. And from each kidney, you have the kidneys filter out your blood. You get rid of excess water and toxins in the form of urine, and they go through your ureters. Your ureters are those tubes leading from the kidneys here in this illustration going to your bladder. So this is what a normal bladder looks like. Okay, you see it, the bladder, you know when your bladder is full, you know where the bladder is located, kind of the front lower part of your abdomen and your pelvis. And then from the bladder, you see that tube, the urethra, that's what goes from your bladder, takes urine out to the outside world. Well, let's keep this up. When you have a bladder that's removed, so in Deion Sanders' case, he actually had an aggressive form of bladder cancer. The good news is, though, his bladder cancer had not metastasized. It had not spread. And so he and his team made the decision to remove the entire bladder in order to get rid of all the cancer. They didn't want to leave it around and shrink it and radiate it and chemotherapy it and just leave it there. They got it out of his body. Okay. He had the total bladder removed. So in its stead, he now has a new bladder, a neo bladder. And what they did was they took a part of his intestine and they shaped it like in a round form of a bladder, similar to what you see on this illustration. And then once they removed his entire bladder, they put the new bladder, or actually, the intestine shaped like a little bit of a ball. They attached it to those 2 ureters and to the urethra. Okay. So now what happens is he does not need a long-term external bag because the portion of his intestine will act as his bladder. So he talked about he depends because initially there's a lot of urinary incontinence, okay, a lot of leaky bladder. But what happens eventually, that the size of the new bladder, that intestine that's now your bladder, it will grow, the muscle supporting it will grow. And within 6 to 12 months after having the new bladder placed, most people will no longer have that daytime incontinence. Okay. Not only will they not need an external bag, they also will not have all that leaking of a bladder. And so it's pretty amazing. He's cancer free, according to his urologist, his doctor who did the surgery. And yeah, he's having probably some incontinence now, as he shared. And I love his transparency. But after 6 to 12 months, he likely will not have that daytime leaky bladder. Yeah. So you don't have to have that bladder. All right. Good. All right. For the final one, did I trip him up on this one, Shador?
Yeah, we got another mixed one on this one. Mixed
All
reviews.
Right. Okay, what we got?
So that statement again, your job can increase your risk of developing bladder cancer.
Your job can increase your risk for developing bladder cancer. What do we have, Shador?
Miss Paradise, hello.
Hi, Miss Paradise.
Miss Paradise says myth.
Myth, like whatever job you have has something to do with it. Okay.
Nick Knack, hello.
Nick Knack, pat whack, give the dog a bone. What you say, Nick Knack?
Nick Knack says fact.
What? You think a job can increase your risk for bladder cancer? All right, Nick Knack, we'll see.
Damon agrees. Hello, Damon.
Hi, Damon. What you know, Damon?
Okay. A fact as well.
A fact. All right.
Destiny.
Hi, Destiny. Oh, I have a little cousin named Destiny. Is that you? Is that you? Are you my cousin? Hi, Destiny. What do you say?
Destiny says myth.
A myth. You don't think a job has anything to do with it? Okay.
Rosemary on Facebook joining us.
Hey, welcome on Facebook.
Miss Rosemary says a myth.
A myth. You don't think the job has anything to do with it? Okay.
And Limitless Sky says a fact.
Limitless Sky says it's a fact. Okay. So this one clearly is a little known detail about bladder cancer. This is a fact. It is a fact that your job can increase your risk for bladder cancer. Okay, what am I talking about? So this is what happens on jobs. If you are around certain chemicals or certain aromatic arenes, or if you work with textiles, with rubbers, at industrial plants, if you're around places where things are being burned, like if you're a firefighter, if you're inhaling certain chemicals, like if you're hairstylist and inhaling certain aerosolized chemicals, some of them can cause a change or a mutation in your bladder DNA and cause cancer. So even firefighters, yes, around smoke all the time are at risk. People around diesel gas can be at risk. Again, textiles, rubbers, working in industrial plants. We know that these things can increase your risk for bladder cancer. Little known fact. Okay. I want y'all to put in the chat, now that you know something about Deion Sanders having bladder cancer, does that increase your chances of kind of paying attention and going to the doctor? Say yay or nay if this kind of changes your perspective. And also put in the chat if you were surprised to learn that firefighters and even painters inhaling chemicals. Are you surprised to learn that that increases your risk? Let's go ahead and play a clip. We have a clip on Deion Sanders, Shador.
Yes, we do.
All right. And y'all please hit that like button as we get this clip going.
What was it like staring death in the face and dealing with the reality?
I didn't stare death in my face. I stared life in the face, man. I stared, man, you think I'm playing when I tell you I'm God's guy. I really am. I'm allowed to go through these trials and tribulations so that I could touch and reach and bless people with my words, with the energy, with that thing that God gave me. So I never thought about no death. You know, I had to make a will because I want to be a business. I want to be a good steward, you know, for my kids and for my family. But no, I got too much life to be thinking about death. Too much life. I got too much life in me, and I got work to do. We got to win the third championship. You talking about death? No, God definitely ain't getting ready to take me before that.
I love his attitude, Shador. I'm telling you, I love his attitude. And quite honestly, when his doctor was in the press conference with him, she said, I normally don't say this. She said, and I don't say it lightly, but he is now cured of bladder cancer. He took the most really aggressive treatment and took the entire bladder out. They checked lymph nodes to make sure there was no spread. And so he was very serious about being alive. And so I really love his attitude. All right. So let me just give y'all a few more risk factors before we move on to our next story. And again, everybody in replay, IG, Facebook, right here on YouTube, just comment and tell me if this makes any kind of difference to you and if anything that we've talked about has surprised you about bladder cancer, including these things like risk factors. The biggest risk factor is smoking cigarettes. Now, Deion Sanders is a non-smoker. So of course, that's just the luck of the draw for him. But being a smoker, cigarette smokers account for half the cases of bladder cancer. In fact, if you smoke cigarettes, you are 3 times more likely to get bladder cancer than non-smokers. So y'all put these cigarettes down. I'm not even playing with you. If you look at the risk factors for just about any disease, heart disease, lung cancer, cervical cancer, skin cancer, you'll find cigarettes are just about on every risk factor list. So again, if you are a smoker, you are 3 times more likely to get bladder cancer than non-smokers. So, And guess what else? Shador, men are more likely to get bladder cancer than women. Listen, you can't do anything about that. And white people are twice as likely to get bladder cancer than other ethnic groups. So we talked about some of the work exposure, the textiles, the leathers, inhaling fumes if you're a painter, diesel gas around things that are burning, aerosolized, carcinogens if you're a firefighter. But other things that can put you at risk if you have chronic bladder inflammation or cystitis, recurrent infections of the bladder, cystitis, recurrent bladder infections. If you're someone who has to wear a catheter, a urine catheter, or a Foley catheter chronically, that could put you at increased risk for bladder cancer. If you have certain congenital abnormalities, like you're born with some malformations or things that didn't quite form in the normal fashion, then that can put you at risk for bladder cancer. And then not so much in the United States, but there's something called schistosomiasis, a parasite that can get in your bladder and put you at a risk for certain types of bladder cancer. Either way, if you see blood in the urine, certainly if you're having urinary frequency, pain with urinating, back pain, unintentional weight loss, all of these things can be warnings of bladder cancer. Consult with your doctor and let's try to prevent it and treat it. All right. Let's move on down the lane to the next story. Let's move on down the lane. And for those of you who are new to me, I am Dr. Frita. I'm an MD. I'm a medical doctor. I have been quadruple board certified. I'm a board certified nephrologist, meaning I'm a board certified kidney doctor and high blood pressure doctor. I have also been board certified in internal medicine, pediatrics, obesity medicine. So I love to talk a lot about a lot. I read medical journals every single day. I was a straight A medical student, if I may say so myself. Y'all, I love this. And more importantly, I love sharing the evidence-based information. So please take advantage of what I love to do, which is share information by joining us here on YouTube. We have over 880,000 subscribers. And so please like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to me already, I don't know what you're playing around for. Come on, give us a subscribe. Help us get to 900,000. And then come on, let's just keep moving to 1 million. Gracias, gracias, muchas gracias. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about your weekly dose, okay? Where I give you a fresh take on medicine you simply can't get anywhere else. Let's start off talking about Justin Timberlake. Now, if you're a Justin Timberlake fan, please put your favorite song in there. Put your favorite song in there and tell me if you liked when he performed at the Super Bowl. Look, you can even comment on what you think about him and Janet Jackson Gate. I know I need to just let that go, right? But anyway, Justin Timberlake, regardless of what you think about him, he definitely is an icon. Interesting, a pop music icon is kind of how he's labeled, but really he's an R&B, right? He's an R&B. That's a whole nother can of worms. We know he's been in the headlines. We talked about it right here when he had that DUI. And so we talked about the dangers of alcohol then, but now he's back in the headlines because he has shared that he's living with Lyme disease. All right, let's play that clip, please, Shador.
We're back with a health alert here on ABC News Live. Singer Justin Timberlake says that he's been diagnosed with Lyme disease. The pop star making that announcement on social media, posting that he'd been feeling a massive amount of nerve pain and, quote, crazy fatigue or sickness while he was performing. He also says living with the disease can be relentlessly debilitating, both mentally and physically. So for more on this, I want to bring in our medical correspondent, Dr. Deion Sutton. And Dr. Sutton, listen, we often associate Lyme disease with ticks in the woods, but what exactly is it? And what are some of the common symptoms?
You're absolutely right, Alex. This is an example of it's not just avid hikers or those who are deep in the woods. It can also happen in your backyard. Lyme disease is a bacterial infection. And Alex, it's the most common vector-borne infection. That means an infection that is transmitted by an insect bite. And aside from Justin Timberlake, nearly 500,000 Americans are diagnosed and treated with this each and every year. But there are two things that can make it tricky. One of them being that the symptoms don't immediately occur after the insect bite. Sometimes it can take 3 to 30 days. And the second is what Justin Timberlake was alluding to. These symptoms, fatigue, muscle aches, nerve pains, chronic and generalized pain can sometimes, unfortunately, mimic other diseases, which can lead people down the wrong road in trying to get a diagnosis.
Well, and so, doctor, how can people minimize the risk of getting Lyme disease, especially parents?
All right. So he has Lyme disease, and we know that it is primarily a tick-borne infection. And, ticks are tiny. We'll get into that just a little bit. I'm going to go over Lyme disease, what it is, how many days it typically takes to get symptoms, what the signs and symptoms are. But in the chat, I want y'all to put in there, knowing that it comes from tick bites. Okay. And ticks are about the size, like a deer tick is the size of a poppy seed, really tiny. And the high risk is usually in warmer months, okay, summer months, spring months, fall months, really anytime when it's above freezing temperatures. And you're at high risk if you're in woody areas, grassy areas, in some of the northeast states, okay, or mid-Atlantic states. That's where you're at higher risk for getting these tick bites. And if you're able to remove the tick from your body within 24 hours, you're less likely to get the Lyme disease. So in the chat, tell me what you think are some good preventive steps, some good prevention for getting Lyme disease, and put Lyme in there. And so we can kind of pick up easy and put it up on the chat. Okay. But let me know some good ways to prevent getting a tick bite, All right. So yes, Lyme disease from a bacteria, the Borrelia bacteria, and it comes from getting bitten by a doggone tick. And what happens, especially if the tick is allowed to just kind of sit there and hang out for a day or so, that bacteria is introduced into your body. And it starts off as a little bitty, tiny red bump, little red itchy bump. And if you have darker skin, it might be the same color as your skin, the bump, or maybe a little bit of a darker brown, tricky to see. But then within 3 to 30 days, that little red bump can spread into a red rash that gets big, has a clearing in the middle, and they call it a bullseye rash. Okay. So let's show some pictures of what a bullseye rash might look like. Look at that. That's a classic look. Okay. And again, it might not happen right away. It could be quick. It could happen quickly, like 3 days, but it could be a month before you get this rash. So always be paying attention to your body. Look, you can't see on your back, so you need to have somebody else every now and again just take a little glance on the back side of your skin for your health. All right. So in this early stage with that rash, you can also get fever, you can get nausea, you can get some just kind of really generalized fatigue, kind of some non-specific symptoms. And so you can imagine, as Justin Timberlake has said, it can be confused with other things. A million things cause a little fatigue, it doesn't really stand out. And then the rash will likely go away. And then later on, you can get some more secondary symptoms where you get more fatigue and you can even have some nerve issues. You can get a facial weakness on one side of the face or both sides. You can get some numbness and some tingling in your nerves. You can get some weakness and again, that just overriding fatigue. And so you can see why Justin Timberlake had to cancel some of his concerts. And then as you get to late stages, they can be months or even years after that tick bite, and who's really making that mental connection? A lot of people don't. But with this late stage, you can get arthritis, like arthritis in your knees or other joints as well. And so here you are, debilitating arthritis. You can even have immune reactions, even starting in earlier stages where you get abnormal heart rhythms. Yes, abnormal heart rhythms related to the Lyme disease. You can also continue to get neurological issues, facial weakness. So are you seeing the pattern? Just a whole lot of non-specific symptoms, but it could be Lyme disease. And so tell me in the chat, if I'm mentioning some of these symptoms and it's like, gosh, I've had some of these things, or doctors keep telling me, oh, you're just tired, or oh, you're just stressed. If you're having a lot of non-specific symptoms, talk to your doctor, because it could be Lyme disease. It could be an autoimmune disease, like something related to lupus, but just add that to your differential diagnosis, to the thing that you're thinking about. Is it Lyme disease that I have? Could I have had a tick bite from who knows when, from being in a woody, grassy area in a northeastern state, mid-Atlantic state? You can get it other places as well. So the most important thing in preventing Lyme disease is going to be to prevent tick bites, or if a tick is on you, getting that joker off of you within 24 hours. So did anyone put in the chat some ways to prevent getting tick bites?
Yes, from IG, Coconut Love.
Coconut Love.
She said, wearing protective clothes.
Very good. Wearing protective clothes. So even though it's hot, and the tick bites usually happen in warmer weather, you want to wear clothes that have long sleeves, long pants. And yes, they can be really like a thin, light material. You also want like a lighter colored material so you can easily see this little dark poppy seed colored tick. And you want to wear pants because there's no sense in wearing a long skirt. The ticks will just crawl on up it. But you want to tuck your shirt inside of your pants, right? And you also want to wear closed-toed shoes. No sense in wearing flip-flops and letting the tick get all between your toes. Put on closed-toed shoes, socks. Just try to cover all of your skin, right? That's good. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, you took Damon's wearing light colored clothing, but he also said insect repellent, or if possible, just stay out of the woods.
That's good. Okay. I took the light colored clothing, but you get my point, Damon. Light colored clothing so you could easily see the dark tick on there. But yes, insect repellent. And if you look on the EPA website, Environmental Protection Agency, they'll recognize, and you can look it up, okay, what is good for preventing ticks, deer ticks. They'll tell you all types of things. You want to use sprays, or repellents that might have DEET, DEET. Also, 0.5% permethrin. That's one of the ones. But yeah, look that up. So you want to wear insect repellent. Put it on the clothes also, okay? On the clothes as well as on your skin. And yeah, stay out of the woods, but that's not always possible because yes, if you're in grassy wooded areas, but what you can do, Damon, try to walk on cleared paths, right? If there's a dirt road that's been kind of paved out, as opposed to walking into the grass, that's a way, or being on the concrete, whatever kind of walkway is paved out. But yeah, trying to avoid being in the wood and walking in the woody, grassy areas because the ticks will normally start off, they'll pop up on your skin, on your feet, your ankles, and then work themselves up. But if you're not walking on the grass, you're less likely to get a tick. So those are good. Very good.
Absolutely. Over on IG, Bob says,
hi, Bob. Welcome from IG.
Keep your grass cut low and sprayed and check your dog.
Ooh. Now that's true because while we're wearing all these lightly colored clothing covering up our skin, you probably are sending your dogs outside in the birthday suits. So yes, check your dogs when they come back in, especially if you're in high risk areas, mid-Atlantic area, Northeast states, grassy wooded area, warm weather. Check your dogs and get those ticks off your dogs as well. Okay.
And Planet Life chimed in, avoiding places where more insects are released, and then of course wearing the long sleeve clothes.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. And I always love emphasizing the long sleeve clothes because it's counterintuitive. You think summertime, let's put on our tank tops, our crop tops, our shorts, let's go. Listen, let me stop. But you want to put on the long sleeve clothes, long pants, tuck in, cover up, protect yourself. So those are good. And again, you want to get the tick off of you, which means you need to be inspecting your body from the rooter to the tutor when you're in a high risk area. You can't see what's going on behind you. So have somebody else look at your backside, all of it. Look between your toes. Check out your hairline. Okay. You don't want a tick to slip up there in your hairline, especially if you have darker hair where you can't see it there. Look all in your underarms. Look everywhere. Because again, if you're able to get the tick off of you within 24 hours, it's less likely that you'll get Lyme disease. All right. Very good. Very good. Put in the chat if after hearing all of these symptoms, the fatigue, the rash, you can even get darker or hyperpigmentation on the backs of your hands or the tops of your feet. That's a specific type of a dermatitis that can be associated with Lyme disease. After hearing all these symptoms, this wide range of symptoms, put in the chat if this makes you want to go talk to your doctor about getting tested because it's easily tested, but you have to consult with your physician. All right. Oh, I love the participation today. Thank y'all.
Speaking of testing, Coconut Love on IG asked, what does it mean when you test positive for a couple markers and not all?
Just in general?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a trick,
Because you said the tick or Lyme disease could be similar to like autoimmune or show up as something else, right?
Absolutely. And that's the tricky part about testing. Sometimes you have overlap. Sometimes you have false negatives, false positives. And sometimes the tick bite can actually trigger an autoimmune reaction. And so you might test positive for something that's an autoimmune disease, but really it's the Lyme disease that's brought it out. What it means is that you have to do retesting and make sure you go to someone who is a specialist. Because of course, primary care doctors, internists, family doctors are able to do testing. But if you are really suspicious and if your questions aren't being answered about what's going on with you, then I recommend that you ask about seeing a rheumatologist. That's the specialist that's a doctor who specializes in autoimmune diseases like lupus, like sarcoidosis, like rheumatoid arthritis, like Crohn's disease, all of those things. And so a lot of times they're able to go through a more detailed battery than even what your primary care doctor is trained to do or will have time to do. Also, an infectious disease specialist. If you're just like, I'm told that I don't have Lyme disease, but I really want to make sure, then oftentimes there are more specific tests that really only the infectious disease specialists do. So talk to your doctor about seeing a rheumatologist and or an infectious disease specialist if you really want to rule out Lyme disease versus a trigger of autoimmune disease or both. Yeah. Okay, real good question. Thank you, Coconut Love. All right. So come on, y'all hit that like as we get on to our next story. And y'all know I love being on here, talking to you as a group with the chat, with the live, with Facebook. But if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with me, I do offer a telehealth concierge service where I can talk to you from anywhere in the world, one-on-one. We set up a time, we do the telehealth visit. I take a full history from you and I give you medical information based on your issue specifically. I've been having such a good time with that. And literally we have been talking to people from all over the world. And look, I got some appointments today when I get off the line with you all, but it's really a way to have a one-on-one interaction. And then also I offer, of course, the membership. I thank you to all of my members. For the members, we have a members only live Q&A every month where instead of me just talking about health headlines, I talk about you. You come in, we drop you a link, and you can ask me questions where I can answer your questions with all of the other members, but it's just dedicated to the members where I answer all of your medical questions. We have conversations, we have a good time. Plus you get some members only videos. All right. So please click the link in the description or go to dr.frita.com, my one-stop shop. All right. Let's move on to the next story, shall we? Hit the like, please, as we get ready to do that. Let's talk about John Legend because he and Chrissy Teigen have been very open in sharing that their son has a diagnosis of diabetes mellitus type 1. Let's play that clip, please, Shador.
Model Chrissy Teigen opening up about her 6-year-old son's health, revealing Miles was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes after being hospitalized for a stomach bug while at summer camp. Teigen writing on Instagram, I've learned since then that this is how so many young children end up being diagnosed with type 1.
There's no way to prevent type 1 diabetes. And we also don't know why some people are more prone to it than others.
The autoimmune disease is a chronic condition where the pancreas doesn't make enough insulin and the body is unable to process sugar. In many cases, experts say the start of symptoms can be really hard to differentiate from normal child behaviors.
If the child is starting to drink more than before, urinate more than prior, wetting the bed when they used to be dry overnight, increased hunger, abdominal pain, we can also see weight loss.
Teigen says she decided to share her family's journey after she says her fans picked up on Miles' glucose monitor in this photo that she shared of her family, cheering on Simone Biles and Team USA.
Children and adults with type 1 diabetes require insulin therapy, and this can be done by a subcutaneous injection, or there's the possibility of wearing an insulin pump, which provides continuous insulin.
Very good. All right. I'm really excited that they shared their story because, I mean, health is so personal, especially the health of your children. And so they easily could have kept it to themselves. Their absolute right to have the privacy. But she and Chrissy Teigen and John Legend have taken it on. And I know that they're helping other people because we talk a lot about diabetes mellitus type 2, which, can be potentially prevented depending on the cause of it. But I want you to put in the chat. I'll talk some more right now about type 1 diabetes, but in the chat, if y'all could please tell me your thoughts on the difference between type 2 diabetes and type 1 diabetes. So when we're talking about type 1, we're typically talking about what used to be called juvenile diabetes or diabetes that occurs in childhood. Yes, it can occur in adults as well. But when you look at little kids who get it, you're often talking about the type 1 diabetes. But tell me what you think the difference is when it comes to type 2 diabetes, where we tend to have older people, different risk factors for type 2 diabetes, and type 2 being something that can be preventable. All right. So let's talk about the type 1 diabetes. So with diabetes, you have an abnormally high sugar level in your blood or hyperglycemia. And that's because you're either not, for type 1, it's because you're not making enough insulin. Okay. Insulin is made by certain cells in your pancreas, and that's that organ that's kind of shaped like a chicken leg, and it goes right across the top of your abdomen, kind of right below your rib cage. And some of the cells there make insulin. Your insulin, it acts like keys, right? Keys that unlock the door to your cells. So every cell in your body needs sugar or glucose in order to perform properly. Every cell in your body, it needs that sugar to be inside of it, the cell. So your insulin acts like a key that unlocks the cell and allows the sugar in. Well, if you don't make enough insulin, such as is the case in type 1 diabetes, then you don't have enough keys. And so you can't open the cell to let the sugar in. And so you have a high sugar in your blood, hyperglycemia, high sugar in the blood. The sugar can be toxic to all kinds of things in your body. It can be toxic to your blood vessels. That's why many people with poorly controlled diabetes will need amputations or have poor wound healing. It can be toxic to the arteries in your heart. That's why having diabetes puts you at a higher risk for heart disease. High blood sugar can be toxic to your kidney vessels. That's why diabetes is the #1 cause of kidney failure. Okay. And so it can cause all kinds of issues. It can be toxic to your nerves, causing neuropathy, a tingling in your fingers and your toes, things of that nature. And again, poor wound healing, you can get a sore. It doesn't heal well. That's why many people with diabetes have to have amputations. Okay. So for type 1, it's nothing you can prevent. It's typically something that it's autoimmune. It's something kind of the cards that you're dealt. And oftentimes young kids or thin people will get it. Yes, you can be older. Yes, you can be living with being overweight, but it's often kind of young kids, skinny kids, and it's the luck of the draw. Okay, they don't have enough insulin. So of course, what's the treatment? Giving them the insulin. And so you monitor the blood sugar levels very closely. We have different ways to monitor it. You used to have to stick yourself in the finger and check your blood sugar several times a day. But now we have these things where like Freestyle Libre, where you can get your blood sugar level without actually sticking yourself. So that's like a huge advancement in technology. And we have insulin pumps, where instead of you always having to measure, drop insulin in a syringe, we have pumps that will release insulin to the body. And so then these kids can still play sports and still live really normal lives, even with the diabetes mellitus type 1. So that's the type 1, where you don't make enough insulin. You don't make enough keys. Did anyone in the chat put any differences as far as type 2 diabetes?
Yes.
It's not. Oh, okay.
Quite a few.
I love your participation. Thank you.
Regina, hello.
Hi, Regina.
Regina says type 2 is insulin resistance and can be prevented and cured, I believe.
Okay, very good. Very good. So it is insulin resistance. So I mentioned in type 1, you don't make enough insulin. You don't make enough keys. Keys aren't there. But in type 2, you have plenty of keys. You make a whole lot of insulin, but your keys don't work. Those cells are resistant to your keys. And so you still end up with high blood sugar. And yes, there are a lot of ways where you can prevent type 2 diabetes. For example, if you are a person who's living with obesity that puts you at high risk, how can you prevent that part? By trying to maintain a healthy weight. If you're eating a lot of ultra processed foods, right? If you have a sedentary lifestyle, then in a lot of ways, type 2 actually can be prevented. But type 1, no, it can't be prevented. So that's good. Okay. Oh, now let's talk about the cure. So, if you check that hemoglobin A1C, that's that number that gives us an average of what your blood sugars have been over the past 3 months. If it's between 5.7 and 6.4, you have pre-diabetes, like a warning. And so I know a lot of people have popped up to being over 6.4, like they've had a hemoglobin A1C of 6.5, 6.8, but then once they get their lifestyle together, lose some weight, do some exercise, it will reverse and get better. And so that's not necessarily a cure, but there is a way to have a diet controlled diabetes. In other words, you can do some things to correct it where you're out of the number of officially having diabetes numbers, but we still call it diabetes. But there is a way to cure type 1 diabetes, if you can believe it. Pancreas transplant. So of course, for me, I take care of a lot of patients who have kidney transplants, but if they have kidney disease and diabetes, then we can do a kidneys pancreas transplant. And that transplanted pancreas can make the insulin that you need. You can come off of insulin. So that's kind of cool. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah. Over on IG, the NP Anika.
Hey, the NP Anika, nurse practitioner, I assume. Hey, I love it.
Mm-hmm. Anika says type 1 diabetes is autoimmune condition and has a higher genetic predisposition. Yeah. Other autoimmune conditions should be screened too, and type 2 is due to insulin resistance impaired insulin use, body not utilizing well.
Perfect. Stated perfectly. I have nothing to add. Thank you, MP. All right, that's real good. Okay, so I have a whole lot of information here on this channel. Again, if you are watching from IG, Facebook, just make sure you pop on over and do give us a subscribe, and over here on YouTube, because I have hundreds of videos, and specifically I have videos on diabetes. I talk about diabetes explained. What is it? What are some of the best foods for diabetes? What are some of the worst foods for diabetes? How to lower your blood sugar naturally, things of that nature. So make sure you check out those videos that I have, as you, of course, give us a like for our live right here, and please give us a share. All right, real good. Let's move on to our
question.
What you got? What you got?
This is from Don. Donna Michi.
Ooh, Donna Michi. Hey there.
Would you discuss why we are hearing more and more of adults being diagnosed with type 1?
You know, that's interesting. We have as we move on with our technology, we are picking up, we have adults who have type 1 diabetes, and of course we have more children who are getting type 2. It's a little more clear cut why children are getting more type 2, because we have an increase in the amount of children who are living with obesity. But as far as the adults, a lot of scientists believe that anytime, we used to label it juvenile diabetes and then adult onset diabetes. And so it's now looking like for the adults, it's not necessarily that more of them are getting type 1 diabetes, but they may have been misdiagnosed with type 2 just because they were adults at the time. But now we're figuring it out that if you're not having the high insulin levels, and if you are having the antibodies against your pancreas, and if you are having low levels of insulin as an adult, then it was type 1 all the while. But yeah, we used to just kind of categorize it juvenile diabetes, adult onset diabetes. But now that we're more paying attention to the mechanism, we're picking up that it's not just age dependent, but it's the science behind it. So whether you're an adult or a child, if the diabetes is due to a decreased amount of insulin, autoimmune attack on your pancreas, then regardless of your age, it's type 1. And one of my good friends in her 40s was diagnosed with diabetes. And no, she wasn't overweight or anything like that, healthy person. And I just assumed, oh, she probably has type 2 diabetes. But sure enough, she has type 1 diagnosed in her 40s. But I feel like, 20 years ago, or maybe 40 years ago, they just would have said adult onset, and we all would have assumed type 2. Thank you, Donna.
I know a family member who diabetic for years, and some changes in the numbers of glucose, and went to a new endocrinologist. They kind of just started at baseline to see, let's make sure it's not type 1 diabetes before we move forward with treating the type 2. So I can understand it. Yeah.
And there's, very definite differences in the treatment, right? Because we talk a lot about these GLP-1s, the Ozempic, the Mounjaro. A lot of people, we talk about them as weight loss drugs, but remember, those were originally studied in diabetes, specifically type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes. So imagine if you have an adult and you just assume they have type 2, you're giving them Ozempic, but the truth of the matter is they have type 1 diabetes. You've completely missed the boat. So yeah, it really does take an endocrinologist who is willing to step back and figure out what kinds you have. That's good.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Frita.
All right. Shall we move on to this next story? Y'all, trigger alert. This is lunchtime. So if you haven't eaten lunch, or if you're eating lunch, you might want to look away at this next video, because we're talking about fish. Y'all, please put in the chat if you eat sushi, specifically raw fish, raw eels, sashimi. Put in the chat if you eat sushi. And let me just go and tell the truth. I do. I get me a spicy tuna roll. Now say something. Anyone else in the chat? Do you eat sushi? Do you eat raw fish? If so, put it in the chat, and I want you to pay attention, especially, or if you have loved ones or people who hang out and eat raw fish, because this person shared on this video how they were preparing their fish, and they had a big old worm wiggling, a parasite in the fish. Y'all like my parasite impression? Let's play this and let's talk about sushi and how to prevent getting parasites from eating raw fish.
So I'm about to make some salmon. I got all this set up. Grill is smoking. Bro, look at... Dude, stop. This is wild caught fresh salmon. No way.
That's hard to watch.
It's like skin crawl.
Yes. Did anyone put in already if they eat sushi? I'm not just talking about California roll. Do you eat raw fish, like raw sushi? Anybody
Yes.
share? Don't be scared. I share. Don't leave me out there like that. Who else has?
Limitless Kai says, I love sushi.
Okay.
Miss Paradise, I like sushi.
Oh, Miss Paradise.
Donna Michi with 3 yeses. Yes, yes, and yes.
I know. Ooh, yes, yes. And then also we'll talk about this case, and we'll talk about parasites and how to prevent them. And then for those of you who either eat sushi or didn't eat sushi anyway, let me know if seeing this video and seeing that worm wiggle in the fish, does that make you change your mind and that you'll no longer eat sushi? Or are you like, yep, that's why I don't eat it, and you're not going to eat it? So let's talk about it. Okay, so when I'm talking about sushi right now, I'm talking about raw fish, okay? And ever since this clip went viral, people are saying, you can get brain-eating parasites from salmon, you can get it from tuna, all of these things. And so let's just talk. First off, yes, fish can have parasites. A lot of animals can. And the parasites that you tend to get if you ingest a parasite from fish is not going to be typically a brain-eating one. And if you flip back just this past week, I talked about some brain-eating or protozoa, a brain-eating amoeba. Oh, because this little boy, y'all, 12-year-old little boy passed away because he got a brain-eating amoeba that he inhaled up his nose because it was in a freshwater lake that he was swimming in. So make sure you go back and go and look at my lives from the week, and you'll be able to see, it's labeled pretty nicely. You'll be able to see where I talk about brain-eating amoeba. But moving back to the fish and parasites, those parasites that you get in fish typically aren't brain-eating ones. But I guess that's not really a sobering thought, because y'all are like, we don't want any parasites. Okay, I know. So here's what happens. There are different ones. The one that's pretty popular is one that's found mostly in Japan. In fact, they get 7,000 cases a year of a specific nematode. Okay. And it's a worm that can get into the muscle of fish. And so, of course, if you are eating the fish, the raw fish, you can get the parasite as a human. The good news, I'm gonna put some silver lining on this, Shador. The good news is that most humans who ingest a parasite, like the one you saw wiggling in that picture, for most people, it will be self-limited, meaning that usually the worm will keep scooting through, you'll eat it, you'll ingest it, and you'll get rid of it in the commode. But in some cases, it will adhere to your digestive system. It might stick to your intestines, and it can cause you to have severe abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, weight loss. So it can cause you to have these issues. But still, the good news is that typically these symptoms will resolve within weeks, and you'll do better. Again, it's really pretty the most common place is in Japan, where they do a lot of sushi and a lot of sashimi. So 7,000 people a year in Japan will get this, and usually they'll do fine. They'll live. But y'all aren't interested in that. Y'all don't want the parasite, correct? Y'all don't want it at all. So for those of you, Donna Michi and everybody who said, "Ooh, yes, I love sushi," let's now talk about how to prevent getting some of the more common parasites in your sushi. Let's talk about how to prevent it. Well, one way is to make sure that you ask questions from the person who's handling your sushi. You ask them, hey, what sushi handler or fish handler do you use? And that's important because you want to ask, does your fish handler candle the fish? Meaning, do they literally cut the meat, look with the light to see if there's any kind of a parasite? Candling. You want to make sure that's done. And a lot of times not a lot, I found every time, the restaurants will be very happy to tell you their process because they want good business and they don't want to lose customers. And so especially some of the more sophisticated restaurants will go through the proper steps, and they'll have a handler who goes through and they'll look at the fish. Also, you want to ask if the fish is ever frozen. This is very important because in order to make this nematode, this parasite, not be alive, then you can cook it, okay, for 140 degrees Fahrenheit for at least a minute. But that's not sushi, is it? So for sushi, you want to freeze the fish. Either freeze it at 20 degrees Celsius for at least a week, at least 7 days, or freeze it at 35 degrees. 35, like negative 35 degrees for at least 15 hours. Okay. So if it's in your refrigerator, your freezer at home, those freezers typically don't get that cold. And so when you're going and you're picking up fish, or if you're doing your sushi at home, you want to ask the handler, how cold does it get? Okay. Have you done a flash deep freezing for 15 hours, or has it been frozen for at least 7 days? In some places like Oregon, I believe they require that the sushi has been frozen to the degree to kill this more popular nematode that can get into the fish. Okay. So you want to ask those questions as well. And if you are doing sushi at home, then you can candle it yourself. Y'all can go ahead and look on YouTube on how to do it, but it's a matter of getting a bright light and you can look through thinly cut pieces of fish and you will be able to see. Y'all saw that big old wiggling worm? You can see it. So those are just some ways to keep yourself safe. But did anyone comment if they're about to stop eating sushi, if they're not worried about it? What did they say?
Yeah, so Sherry on Facebook, she says, yes, she eats sushi, but I want no more.
Oh, all right. You're not gonna go and just have a conversation with the restaurateur, and ask them if they've candled or flash frozen their sushi. All right, there you go. Fair enough.
Miss Sheree, she says, I'm even going to take salmon off of my grocery list.
Wait. Now for the salmon, now especially if it's not sushi, if you cook it 140 degrees Fahrenheit for even a minute, and I know you're going to cook your salmon longer than a minute, come on, then it will kill the parasite. Now that's a fact. So look, I'm not trying to stop y'all from eating fish because salmon is one of those fatty fish with omega-3s. It's good for preventing heart disease, lowering cholesterol. Come on back. All right.
Miss Aileen, hey, chime in today. She says that was disgusting. I don't think I would eat any form of sushi.
Oh no, that actually wasn't really my point, but y'all know I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. It was in the headline, so I'm gonna tell you the truth. I tell no lie. There are worms in the fish, but again, if you happen to eat a worm, most people won't get sick at all, but if you do, self-limits it within weeks for most people. But if you ask the questions and if it's frozen, that is enough to take out the life of the parasite for those specific temperatures, as far as the 15-hour one for the very cold temp and a week for the somewhat cold frozen temperature, or cooking 140 degrees Fahrenheit for at least a minute. Who else? Look, I done turned down a whole sushi industry, at least for the people
IG,
who live.
Water on IG.
Hi.
She said, that's why I don't eat raw sushi, only cooked for me.
Okay. And I know a lot of people like that will do a California roll or shrimp tempura roll or soft shell crab roll, things like that. They'll eat sushi, but cooked sushi. But yeah, this is specifically pertaining to the raw fish. Hey, the more you know, knowledge is power. So, but again, I'm not trying to turn everybody off of sushi. I'm still going to eat my spicy tuna rolls. I am, from certain places. Does that make me a wild, risky person? Or am I just a glutton? Am I looking for parasites? I don't think so. But I definitely can understand people's stomachs being turned. But it's important when you see these things on TikTok or things that go viral. I like to come here and let you know, it's not just a hoax. It's not someone doing AI or just trying to be provocative. There really can be parasites and worms in your sushi. All right, let's move on to something that's a little less, stomach turning. But let's talk about Khloé Kardashian, shall we? All right, please go ahead and give us a like, and let's play this clip because Khloé Kardashian shared that she has had a skin cancer that she really kind of kept to herself initially.
Is opening up about her melanoma diagnosis at age 19, a secret she kept from her family. During the July 30th episode of her Khloé in Wonderland podcast on X, the 41-year-old reality star recounted, "My first bout of skin cancer, I was 19 years old. When you're 19, you don't really think about how scary things can be." She explained that just months after her father, Robert Kardashian, passed away from esophageal cancer in September 2003, she discovered a skin cancer lesion on her back but opted not to inform her family. Khloé decided to handle her health issues privately to avoid adding to her family's burdens during a challenging time. "I knew I was fine. Cancer is a really scary word," she said. "I literally drove myself to the doctor, got all the skin removed, and that was it." Nearly 2 decades later, Khloé found a bump on her face, initially assuming it was cystic acne. She shared, "I was convinced it was that cystic pimple. I think I messed around with it for over a year." After consulting various professionals who dismissed her concerns, one esthetician recommended a biopsy, leading to the devastating diagnosis of melanoma.
Yep. So I did not realize this about her, that she'd had skin cancer. And so let's talk about skin cancer. And let's also talk about some ways to prevent skin cancer. Now, she specifically had melanoma, which you know is a very serious form of skin cancer. Okay. It's an abnormal growth of the melanocytes, your pigment, your skin cells that produce pigment. And the melanoma can actually be much more fatal than some of the other skin cancers, like basal cell carcinoma. That one's pretty common. You'll see it in sun areas, and it can be removed. It's slow growing, and most people do well with basal cell carcinoma. But when you have, and there's also squamous cell carcinoma, another type of skin cancer, which can be serious. Melanoma definitely can be a very deadly one. So we'll go over some symptoms of melanoma. But in the chat, I want you just in general to talk about ways to prevent skin cancer, just in general, ways to prevent skin cancer. And we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So melanoma specifically, and I also want you to put in the chat, for those of you who've been with me for a while, you've heard me ask this before, what singer, a Black singer, Jamaican singer, had melanoma? Because so many people think that Black people cannot get skin cancer, but we can. What very famous reggae singer, a Black person, had melanoma? We'll talk about that because it's a little different from regular melanomas. All right. So melanoma, again, we'll talk about this, but in the chat, put ways to prevent skin cancer in general. So melanoma, again, is a cancer caused by abnormal growth of melanocytes, or the pigment producing skin cells. And with the melanoma, you might mistake it for a mole or cystic acne, like what Courtney did, or Khloe did. She mistook it. But there's some very distinct ways when you're looking at something to distinguish it from just acne or a mole versus could it be more worrisome? Could it be melanoma? And one way is to use the ABCD method. Okay. And so if it's just a regular mole, then it's going to be just kind of pink, or your regular skin colored, or if you are a darker person, if you're a Black person, it might be a dark brown or even black, and it will be symmetric, right? It'll look the same all around, and it'll be there, same size, right? It's not going to sit up there and grow. But if you have ABCD, then I want you to be suspicious and go to see your doctor, see your dermatologist, and request a biopsy. So the A in the ABCD, asymmetry, okay, or appearance. If it starts to maybe on one side grow, be a little bulky, the other side still be the same. So if you have this asymmetrical mole that used to be just regular, then I want you to be suspicious. B, the borders. If it no longer has nice, smooth borders, but if they start to look scalloped or uneven, then an abnormal border, okay, could mean that it could be melanoma. Get it checked out. The color. In typical benign or non-cancerous mole, you expect the color to be uniform, right? All brown, all pink, just one color, all black, but just one color. If you start to see red, blue, black, just different pigment within one mole, then that should make you suspicious that it could be cancer. And then D, diameter. If it starts to grow in diameter, especially if it's over 6 millimeters and it's getting bigger, then at least go in and take it seriously. I'm glad that Khloe was honest. She said she kind of sat and picked on something thinking it was cystic acne. She sat and she picked on it. And that's not uncommon, because if the cancer is not painful, if it's not bothering you, if it's just there, and especially if you're a young person like she is, and she definitely was at 19, then cancer is probably not going to be on the top of your mind. But in her case, it was cancer. And so again, I'm glad that she's sharing her story to help other people. Now, one of the big risk factors for skin cancer is going to be high sun exposure, and then having pale skin, not having very much melanin, right? So white people or people with really light skin are going to be at higher risk than Black people, right? Or people who are brown. But truth of the matter is that you can be a Black person and you can get melanoma. Did anybody put in the chat which Jamaican singer, what reggae singer actually had melanoma?
Yes, they did. Miss Jocelyn.
Hi, Miss Jocelyn.
Said Bob Marley.
Absolutely. Bob Marley had it. Anybody else that you could see?
Yes, I remember Miss Andrea also said Bob Marley. And then Miss Aileen.
Hey.
Yellow Man is a famous reggae singer that also has skin cancer.
Oh, I don't know about Yellow Man. Is Yellow Man someone who is a Black person, a yellow-skinned Black person? Is it an Asian person? Yellow Man. I don't know Yellow Man. I gotta look that person up. Bob Marley is someone, of course, who's very famous and who is, Jamaican, of African descent, not a white pale person. Now let's talk about the type of melanoma that tends to happen with people who are Black or Asian or have melanin. And so for Bob Marley, his specifically start off in his toe, like under his toenail, I believe. And there's something called an acral lentiginous melanoma. And it's one that Black people or brown people tend to get. And instead of just being in the sun exposed areas, which is where you typically get skin cancers like basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and melanoma in white people or people who don't have a lot of pigment. In Black people, the contrast is you can get an acral lentiginous carcinoma, and this tends to be under fingernails or under toenails or under the palms of your hands or the soles of your feet. Black people are also more predisposed to getting some melanomas in the mucosal areas, meaning you can actually get them like in the intestines or inside of the rectum and the anus. Okay. So truth of the matter is, because these are in places that aren't from high sun exposure, the risk factors are different. But the point is that skin cancer can occur even in people who are non-white. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that point for melanoma. But now in general, for skin cancer in general, not just melanoma, but also the other types, the basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, did anyone put in the chat, what are some ways to prevent getting skin cancer?
Yes, they did.
All right.
Aileen says to prevent skin cancer, cover and wear clothing that covers your arms or skin.
Absolutely. So there we are again. When you're out in the sunny times, the sunny days, instead of just putting on your tank tops and sundresses and shorts, putting on some thin, lightly colored clothing that cover up your arms, your legs, hats, glasses. Try to cover your skin to protect it from the sun. That's good.
Planet Life.
Hi, Planet Life.
Use sunscreen or sun cream.
Absolutely. A sunscreen, at least an SPF 30. And you might want to use something higher if you have a lighter skin. But yes, covering up with sunscreen and reapplying that sunscreen like every couple of hours, especially if you're swimming. Reapply your sunscreen. Very good.
Yeah. So
okay.
This we have.
Okay. Also, you want to avoid being out when it's the sunniest, like between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Try to avoid being out in the sun during those hours. And so those are some of the main ways to prevent it. And again, for those ones that are under the toenails or in places where there's no sun exposure, that's not going to help you prevent it, but just make sure everyone of all colors know your skin, be checking your skin, ask your doctor to give you a skin check. And again, if you notice a mole that's becoming asymmetric, borders are abnormal, the color is different, the diameter, the width is getting bigger, then be suspicious, regardless of if you're a white person or if you're a person of color. All right, real good.
And clarification on Yellow Man. The chat is saying that Yellow Man is a Jamaican rapper who is albino.
Oh, very interesting. I got to look up him. So albino, that takes us into someone who is living with albinism. So if you are a person who's living with albinism, then that means that your melanocytes are not going to be producing melanin. And so you will have very white skin. And so that will put you in more of the same risk categories of someone who has straight up white skin. And actually you'd be even at higher risk because you don't have any cells that are producing melanin. And so you can definitely, of course, be a Black person living with albinism. And they tend to have hair that look blonde, I guess by the time the sun gets to it, eyes that sometimes look pink, very pale skin, not just pale, outright white skin. And if it's a Black person with albinism, they'll still have whatever Black features, whatever texture hair their parents have, whatever, full lips, nose, or whatever the features are of their parents. You still have the Black features of Black culture. You just literally have white skin, blonde looking hair from the sun. And sometimes you can get a nystagmus, eyes that are shifting side to side. You might notice that in people who are living with albinism. So that's interesting. Now I got to look up Yellow Man. I bet he has yellow hair. Let me look. And so that would make sense, being at high risk for the.
T Chosen says, can you speak on newly formed moles?
That's interesting, T Chosen. Most people have gotten all the moles that they're going to get by the time they're 40. Okay. So then if you're less than 40 and you're still getting new moles, then that's not considered to be abnormal. You might have 15 moles on your body, 20 moles on your body. But if you get a new mole from anywhere, especially if you're over the age of 40, but any new mole that is changing in size, if it's getting bigger, and again, changing in color, if it's like, where did this come from, is worth going to a dermatologist, getting it checked out, getting a biopsy. Okay. Yeah. By the time you're over 40, getting a bunch of new moles popping up on your body, not impossible. It's just not the norm. And so it's worth being safe rather than sorry. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Right. Before we close out, Dr. Frita, I have a question from our member.
Hi, thank you for being a member. Which member? Who we got?
This is from Miss B Wellness.
Thank you,
New
Be
to-
Wellness.
Excuse me. She says, "Hello, Dr. Frita. What can be some causes of sticky fingers in someone that has high blood pressure?"
What can be some causes of sticky fingers in someone who has sticky or stinky?
Sticky.
Sticky
I don't know if
fingers.
she meant stinky, but she said sticky.
Okay, I want you to give me a little more detail. You mean literally like you touch something and your fingers stick to it? Yeah, because I'm actually not familiar with sticky fingers in association with high blood pressure. Hey, just jump in there, please, and give me more details what you mean by sticky fingers. Does it feel like there's like sugar, dirt, something, glue making your fingers stick to things?
All right. Well, while we're waiting on her, shout out to our member, Miss Rosalind, joining
Hi,
us.
Rosalind. Okay. But yeah, so while we're waiting for the distinction on the high blood pressure, we'll just talk in general about high blood pressure, what it is, because you know that definition changed back in 2017. If your top number systolic is 130 or higher, or if that bottom number is 80 or higher, then you are considered to have high blood pressure. Now, could you have white coat hypertension where it only is high in the doctor's office? Possibly. But if that's the case, you want to do some home monitoring. Okay. And when you check your blood pressure at home, you want to make sure you check it properly. You want your feet to be uncrossed, your bladder to be empty, because a full bladder can give you a falsely high blood pressure. You want your arm to be at the level of your heart. If your arm is dangling down, that can give you a falsely high blood pressure. You want to make sure the blood pressure cuff fits properly, because this cuff that's too tight, you know, if you got some big old thick arms, if that cuff is too tight, that will give you a falsely high blood pressure. Also, you don't want to smoke within an hour of taking the blood pressure. You don't want to drink caffeine or alcohol within an hour of checking the blood pressure. You don't want to do a lot of exercise within the hour of taking blood pressure. All of that can cause a falsely high blood pressure. Even eating, don't eat within a half hour or an hour of taking blood pressure. And of course, high blood pressure can cause all kinds of things. It's the second most common cause of kidney disease, leading cause of heart disease, strokes, things of that nature. But now back to the sticky fingers. I'm gonna have to get back with you. Okay,
so she did come back and say fingers feel sticky.
Okay. So here's what I would do with that. I would definitely consult with your primary doctor. That's not a classic symptom of high blood pressure. Not to say that it couldn't happen. It's not a classic one. But one thing I want you to make sure of is that you don't have any issues with your nerves, like a neuropathy. Which typically is not associated with high blood pressure. It can be associated with other things like diabetes, high blood sugar, or even if you have some other type of a neurological condition. I'm not speaking that into your life, but just because you have the symptom, I want you to go to your doctor and make sure that your blood sugar is evaluated. Sometimes people with diabetes, again, not speaking this on, you're saying you have it, but just for general education, sometimes people with diabetes can have a neuropathy, or their fingers can feel sticky, or can feel like pins and needles, or even they can have the similar sensation on their toes, or can feel like they have on wet socks even when their feet are totally dry. Make sure you check out my video here on the YouTube channel where I talk about ways that your feet can be telling you that you have diabetes. But yeah, I would go and make sure that you don't have anything going on with your blood sugar or with your nerves, no type of neuropathy. But if you don't mind sharing, please come on back and talk to us about it. Yeah. And meanwhile, of course, make sure that you keep your blood pressure under control, under the supervision of your physician. Thank you. All right. And of course, I do have a book, Under Pressure, A Guide to Controlling High Blood Pressure. You can click the link in the description here or visit dr.frita.com and get your copy today. All right. We had a great talk. I love how all the med heads were here. We're very interactive. Make sure that you do join our membership so you can be a part of our members only live Q&A. Also check out, the telehealth concierge service that I offer, where you can have a one-on-one conversation with me about your personal health issues. Check out my book, Under Pressure, A Guide to Controlling High Blood Pressure. Check out the podcast, the Healthy Happy Life podcast with Dr. Frita. And please do give us a 5-star when you go there. That way you don't have to always be looking at our faces when you hear this good old evidence-based medical information. You can be walking the dog, folding the laundry, cleaning the house, and just listen to the podcast. All right. Thank you so much, Shador. And thank you to everyone. Please make sure you click that like button and share on your way out the door. And I'll see you next Monday. Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell, because sometimes I just pop up here and do random lives. You never know.